Hello, my name is Barry Ross. My roots in Detroit go back to the early 1900s. My grandfather, Ben Sermon, founded Sermon's Clothes in 1917. He was a Russian immigrant that could barely speak English. He was not really an educated man, he was a religious good man. Business was tough in the mid-teens, and it later got worse as the Depression came, and my grandfather, Ben, had to pull his son, Bill Sermon, which later on became the great businessman of Sermon's Clothes, outside of my brother Stephen, who even became a better businessman. He had to pull Bill out of college. Bill was in optometric school. Things were very tough. They used to say that business was so bad that they would practically take bottle caps as deposits on the clothes, and bus tickets. Things were very, very bad. And later on, after World War II, things started picking up a little bit, and my Uncle Bill went to the high schools in Detroit, which were predominantly African American in the later 50s, the latter part of the 50s, and he started selling them band uniforms, the Nehrus. And since most of them were African American, he developed an African American clientele downtown Detroit. And the 60s were great until John F. Kennedy got shot, and then the race riots took place, and then it was really all over when Malcolm X and Martin Luther King got assassinated. Those were very, very tough political times for the cities in the United States. And the interesting thing is the Black Panthers, the white powers to be in those years, which was Hoover, this son of a bitch, decided that it was a anti-establishment organization, and that blacks were getting too much power, and he felt threatened. And they really were a good power. They were a community program oriented organization that fed the poor, wanted to educate. They weren't about violence. It was the United States that thought they were. So you know what they did? The white government allowed the free flow of heroin to come into the inner cities. They figured they'll slow them down with heroin. And they figured they could contain the drugs. That wasn't what happened, and it got out of hand, and violence really came into play in the late 60s and 70s, and there were major drug dealers all over the cities, and Vietnam vets were coming back and getting strung out on heroin, and the inner cities became crime-ridden, and it was awful. And then later on, the Young Boys Incorporated took on a philosophy that no one's going to take to a street corner, so they'll just kill them. That's when really the value of human life really started going down the drain. And then later on, even as crack cocaine came in, and most of the big cocaine dealers were young guys, and they could really care less about anybody living. So is to set an example, if someone like took their street corner, they'll just kill them. So that took place. And then in the late 70s, a little before the crack, or right when crack really started, the gangs in Detroit, the BKs and the Aero Flynn's were ruling the streets. And so that's the 70s and the 80s. And then I have to say, now, I am a former drug user. I'm a drug addict, and I was a former drug dealer. I have never, ever witnessed, I'm almost 60 years old, the level and disregard for life, and the level of violence that's taking place, the cold-hearted nature of these street killers that have taken over our city. Due to economic shortages, we don't have an adequate police department. We have over 50% less men than we need. And because of these economic shortages, they've made now these districts, police districts, that encompass a much vaster area, and they have less men to disperse, so the response time is terrible. 72% of all the murders never get solved, and it's just unbelievable. And Crime Stoppers has over 500 cases of murders on their books now. I also hear, and this is speculation, the Detroit Police Department has lost its crime lab. So they're virtually inadequate. So my organization, the mission is to get the communities, all people in the city of Detroit, out of their homes and to take charge of their own streets in a nonviolent manner. We need to take control of our city. If we don't do this relatively soon, we're going to lose more people. People are living in tyranny. The average age of the street killer is 14 to 25. We're no further as a race today as we were in the 1800s. Now, my co-founder of my organization is Lindsay Wright E.L., and he is a Moorish Muslim. He's on several other organizations. I'm Jewish. I got my right-hand man's a Muslim. I'm going to church on Sunday to support another pastor in our organization, Pastor Alvella from the United Communities of America. I've worked with her. I'm working with the Detroit 300, major action-oriented group. 300 men in patrol cars, civilian cars with lights, tracked down the 3 assailants of these 3 elderly women in Russell Woods in Detroit, in the community of Russell Woods on Livernois and Davison. They attacked 3 women, 85 to 90. One of the women was even raped. Even a woman, a 90-year-old, was raped in a wheelchair. So with the help of the police, they tracked down these guys. And they're led by Raphael B. Johnson, who's an ex-killer, who has turned his life around. And I'm telling you, one of the highest respected people I've ever met in my life. And he's got all my respect. I mean, I'm in adulation about this guy. I completely adore him. He's working so hard. This guy got out, he served 11 years in prison. And the day he got out, he's been running on the ground like O.J. Simpson, baby. He's not stopping. 24 hours a day, he's working to change the mindsets of youth. He facilitates classes. I've heard him. He is a great orator. I've been to a radio station, Pastor Avella's radio station, just to hear him. I'm reading his book, The Rite of Passage. Malik Shabazz, The Nation of Islam. Unbelievable, man. He's been marching on crack houses for 25 years. And I've been out with these guys. I went on a street patrol in Highland Park for Angels Night with these guys. I haven't worked yet with the It Takes a Village, Y'all, run by Robert Louis Stevenson, but I'll work with them. The police, the Detroit Coalition Against Police Violence, led by Ron Scott. I've been to one organizational meeting. I'm going to do whatever I can. I've been on radio stations, Masons, Gospel. I was on R.J. Watkins' TV station, Fox 2 News. And I have to say, this isn't about me seeking attention. This is about me getting out there in the most humble way to get the word out however I can to inspire citizens. Hey man, it's up to you to save your own city. If you don't do something about it, nobody else will. The government's not going to help you. The police department doesn't have the resources. The city council's not going to help, man. We're in a state of emergency with violence. So I'm doing everything I can, and I'm working now on a big media promotion to get positive media attention to all these organizations that I mentioned. And I'll do whatever I can for anybody that's willing to make a difference and not talk about it, that wants to make a concerted action-oriented effort to get out there. People that talk a good game and don't do nothing, I got no respect for. Reminds me of the women that go to church that pray for a man and never leave their house. Or the person that's in a flood and he prays for God to help him, and God sends a helicopter and a ladder and they don't pay any attention, and the person just disregards all help. How many signs do you need, man? We're out here to help people. So you don't stand for something, you're going to fall for anything. So I'm tired of watching the local news stations. Murder, rape, violence every single day. So we're out here to change the city, and hopefully corporate America will come in and want to invest in Detroit. We don't even have any businesses in these neighborhoods, no supermarkets, no movie theaters anymore, a wig shop, a party store, a gas station, a nail salon, and a dollar store. There's no commerce in the inner cities for the African Americans. There's no decent food stores. I want to change all that. Okay? It's time. It is time for us, all of us. This is a humanity problem. It's got nothing to do with race, creed, or color, your religion. Listen, man, I'm Jewish. My guys are Muslim. If I can get out here in these streets with all different kinds of people, so can everybody else. You ain't no different than me. Thank you.